You're just pretending, aren't you? Who are you to have dinner in the modern restaurant? Lara Jane was very happy. She was angry that she had sacrificed herself for nothing just now. Now, she was delighted to see Yvette Jordan despise Chuck Cannon. Did he really think that by picking up a few trashy dollars, he could forget the nature of being a poor man? He was just a loser. It was hilarious. Conrad Lee's face was contorted with a mixture of loath and joy. Still, pretending. He won't be able to any longer now. Chuck Cannon, you've disappointed me too much. Yvette shook her head with disgust in her eyes. She knew that he was working part-time at the agency, but was the money from his part-time job enough for him to come here to spend? He was definitely lying to her. What's more, he was talking so big about spending money. In his own world of lies, he really would not have any success in his life. Yvette was truly disappointed. It was the right decision to stop him from sleeping in her own bed. Well, guess what? You've also let me down. Chuck shook his head. She was just like a docile woman, speaking softly to Baller in such a soft and sweet tone, even begging Baller to come to meet her. However, towards himself, her attitude was so different, just like the difference between heaven and earth. She was always disappointed in him, like a vengeful woman always coming after him. If Yvette knew that the two people whom she faced with two different attitudes were actually him, the same person, what would she think? Chuck suddenly did not want to argue anymore. You're disappointing me. You're not qualified to say that. Well, if you say you're here for dinner, where is the message for the VIP room reservation? Show me your proof. Yvette retorted coldly. I don't have any proof. Chuck shook his head. Have you ever been to a high-end place? This kind of place needs to be reserved, but you don't have to. You have the privilege because you are the waiter here. Lara did not miss any chance to ridicule him. That's right. It's a privilege for you since a waiter just comes in and cleans up the VIP room. At least you can come in and go out at will. Unlike us, we have to make troublesome arrangements just to reserve a seat to eat here. Chuck definitely has it much easier. You can just come in with a dirty rag. Once you take off your clothes, you can pretend to be eating here. Just so simple. I envy you. Conrad mocked. Teacher, he used his identity as a waiter here to simply call girls over, and even pretended to spend money here as a customer. I only came because I felt he was pitiful, but who knew he was a person like this? Teacher, let's go. Ignore such trash, Lara said to Yvette arrogantly. Yvette was deeply displeased. You don't even have a reservation text message. How can you be so self-righteous? You lie so naturally without even thinking it true. Remember, when you lie next time, check it out first. This is no seat without a reservation. Do your research more, then your lies will sound more legitimate. After saying that, Yvette turned around and left. Lara scowled at Chuck and pulled Conrad outside by his arms. But precisely then, a tall and beautiful woman walked in confidently. Her red lips parted to reveal a cool, unfazed voice. Miss, who said that this is no seat here without reservation? Who are you? Yvette frowned. She did not know this woman, but this woman's temperament told her that she was not simple. Hello, my name is Zelda Main. The beautiful woman said. Zelda Main, are you the owner of this restaurant? Yvette was surprised. She often invited people out for dinner here. How could she not know this? But what was she doing here? Yes. Zelda nodded. Miss, our restaurant's VIP guests don't need to book. There are seats for them at any time. Well, I know that. Yvette nodded. Lara couldn't help sneering. Did the manager just say that Chuck is a VIP here? How could it be possible? She had never been here to spend money, but she also knew what conditions she needed to become a VIP of a restaurant. First of all, the expenditure must reach their standard. For a restaurant of this level, it would cost at least $300,000 to become a VIP. Chuck had always been poor. It was only recently that his luck took a tumble, and he managed to pick up some money, but it was only $20,000. Even if he spent all of it, he was still far from the standard of the restaurant's VIP guests. How could it be? She looked down on Chuck even more. Seriously, even if he asked other employees to cooperate with his acting, he had to do some research on his own too. Lara felt that now the word VIP had a derogatory meaning. Hearing the laughter, Zelda glanced at Lara and asked gently, "Were you going to complain about our employees just now?" "That's right, it's me. It's so nice being a waiter here." Lara sneered. A waiter actually managed to make other employees cooperate with him to lie to us, even saying something like he was here just to eat. Yvette looked at Chuck disappointingly. "So you think that this gentleman in front of you is a waiter here?" Zelda said calmly. "Of course. Look at his cheap clothes. He doesn't look like a customer who can spend half a day here. He is definitely a waiter. As a boss, I think you should severely punish staff with this kind of behavior. He should be fired immediately." Lara's voice toned down, full of the pleasure of revenge. "Sorry, I can't do that." Zelda shook her head. "As a boss, you still want to side with your employees in front of customers. Well, the way modern restaurant deals with this really show us, customers, some things. Isn't the customer always right? Now employees are godly correct instead." "Haha, so rare." Lara snickered. "First of all, you are not our customer." Zelda retorted calmly. Why do you say that I am not a customer here?" Lara was angry. "Secondly, he's not an employee here, but a VIP in our restaurant. That's why I can't fire him." Zelda glanced at Chuck as she spoke. Chuck was a little surprised. Yvette's expression changed, a hint of astonishment appearing on her pretty face. She couldn't help but gawk at Chuck, and she was even more surprised by him. It was because she suddenly realized that Chuck was so calm. If he encountered such a situation previously, he would have panicked and tried to look for help from others pleadingly. But today was different. It seemed that he had changed. He was weirdly confident. "What's going on?" Lara widened her eyes and tried to cover up her shock. "Do you think I will believe it? People like him, a VIP of your restaurant. Do you really think that I don't know the standard for VIPs in your restaurant? If you don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, you would never get the title of VIP. If he is your VIP, then your restaurant is not as high-end as I thought, maybe even low-end. Because if garbage like this can become a VIP of this restaurant, it means that you have abandoned the word high-end." Conrad chuckled slyly. "She's just adding oil to the fire. Why didn't she fire Chuck earlier? What's there to pretend? You're right. The VIP room needs a large sum of money. But this gentleman is my friend. As my friend, can't he be a VIP?" Zelda's expression did not change, and her tone was still so indifferent. Conrad was surprised that Chuck was Zelda's friend. After all, his father was an interior designer who did many high-end restaurants, such as the one owned by Zelda. How could such a person think that Chuck was a friend? Conrad found it incredibly impossible. Yvette was surprised. She didn't expect that Chuck's words were true. He really came here for dinner, so was she jumping to conclusions? She examined Chuck once again, her eyes scanning his expression carefully. For some unknown reason, she felt that he had suddenly changed. That confidence that he had was something she had never seen before. Chuck was changing. "Friends." Lara frowned and glanced at Chuck. "You know such a friend. Look at his cheap clothes. Don't you think it's a disgrace to know such a person?" "I don't think so." Zelda glanced at Lara. Lara was so angry that she clenched her teeth in frustration. How could it be possible? She didn't even know such a rich person, so how would Chuck know her? Lara was envious. After all, Zelda's politeness to Chuck was obviously genuine. He really knew such a rich person. Lara was going crazy. So this gentleman is a VIP, he doesn't need a booking. How can I fire a VIP? Zelda looked at Yvette, but her last sentence was actually directed towards Lara. Lara's face turned red. She felt so embarrassed today. Yvette was silent. Well then, how do you two know each other? Hearing Yvette Jordan's question, Zelda Main rolled her eyes and looked at Chuck Cannon calmly. She found he was a little nervous and was puzzled. Why was he nervous? Was he driving a car worth more than $2 million? Did he still want to keep a low profile? Despite knowing, she helped him cover up, I can't answer that. Anyway, this gentleman is a nice person, definitely, I am his friend. Chuck heaved a sigh of relief. A nice person. Yvette glanced at Chuck inadvertently. She had known him for so many years, but she had never felt that he was good. However, his calmness today really surprised Yvette. Maybe he was really changing. Why didn't you take notice of this gentleman? Zelda asked curiously. Yvette shook her head and walked out without saying a word. Zelda thought of something and immediately called out, Miss, my staff said that you have been waiting for someone for a long time. You'd better ask him if he will come. It's not a good idea to continue waiting like this. Yvette stopped and said, I'll wait. After that, she went out. Lara Jean and Conrad Lee were confused. Who was their teacher waiting for? Yvette sat down again and took out her mobile phone. Seeing that the baller hadn't returned her message on WeChat, her face darkened. She just wanted to treat him a meal to thank him. Why didn't he show up? Why weren't you replying to me? Zelda shook her head slightly. She could tell that Yvette dressed up deliberately. Was it a date? Did the man skip the appointment? She rolled her eyes and suddenly noticed that Chuck was acting weirdly, his eyes glued to the leading figure of the woman just now. Was the lady just now waiting for him? Zelda raised an eyebrow at Chuck questioningly. Chuck coughed, and his expression returned to normal. Zelda's lips twitched as she realized the truth. She was really waiting for him, but why didn't he go meet her then? Do you have anything else to say? Zelda asked Lara Jean. Is he really your friend? Lara asked cautiously. How did Chuck manage to befriend someone so amazing? She was really envious. Yes, Zelda was serious. Chuck felt strange. He was really surprised that Zelda would come in, even going as far as to defend him. After all, the two of them had only met when they parked the car. Their meeting could only be considered a fleeting moment. They couldn't possibly be friends like this. Since I'm his friend, can you give me a VIP title? Lara said expectantly. If she had a VIP title from Modern Restaurant, it would be so glorious for her at university. You are his friend. Zelda smiled sarcastically. You are his friend, yet you sneered at him just now. It's not sarcasm at all if it's true. I mean, look at his clothes, you can tell that he is a waiter. Lara was dissatisfied. A waiter. Zelda was amused at Lara's absurd logic. A man driving a car of more than $2 million was a waiter. What was this woman thinking? Although he is not a waiter here, he could be a waiter somewhere else too. He is just lucky to have met a friend like you, otherwise, how can he have the right to speak here? Lara continued to pick on Chuck mercilessly. Miss, do you know that he drives? Zelda couldn't bear to listen any longer and started to stay. She stopped suddenly when Chuck rushed over and signaled for her to stop. He drives what? Lara asked disdainfully. Zelda shook her head and said it's nothing. Lara continued to beg shamelessly. Can't you give me a VIP title? No. Zelda refused at once. Don't pretend. Since you can give VIP titles to people like him, why can't you give it to me? I won't come to your restaurant again. What's so great about it? Lara snorted in annoyance and dragged Conrad out of the room. Zelda's eyebrows knitted tightly as her tone suddenly dropped. What did you say? I said that since a person like him has a VIP title, why can't I have it? Aren't I 100 times better than him? Lara was stubborn. Your mouth is 100 times fouler than his, isn't it? Zelda said. You. Lara was angry. Was she trying to say she had a foul mouth? Oh, I know. Don't tell me you're actually Chuck's mistress, aren't you? That's why you've been helping him all this while. He's your gigolo boy. No wonder a loser like him has a VIP title. Turns out, you two are lovers, but don't you feel that you rich bastards have bad taste? Lara said scornfully. Once he heard her words, Conrad knew that she shouldn't have said that. After all, she was speaking to the owner of Modern Restaurant. Conrad secretly nudged Lara. Stop pulling me. Lara smirked condescendingly. I must be right. That's enough, Lara. Chuck said coldly. Chuck didn't want to pay attention to her just now, but she actually had the audacity to mess with the boss. Slap. Zelda raised her hand and slapped Lara. Why are you such a b***tch? Chuck was stunned. This woman was really fierce. Lara had been spoiled since she was a child and had never been beaten before, what more to be slapped? The pain that she felt on her face induced a sense of shame within her, and she cried out wrongfully, Why did you hit me? Because you're a bitch. Zelda's look was as cold as an ice queen. For a moment, her demeanor as a boss had crushed Lara's self-pity and sense of superiority to the ground. Conrad, did you see that? She hit me, she hit me. Come on, hit her. Lara took Conrad's hand and pouted. Lara, let's go. Conrad tried to pull Lara away. His father's small company was counting on such big bosses like Zelda. He would never have the guts to offend her. What do you mean, go? Don't you see your poor girlfriend being slapped? Why are you so timid? Help me get back at her. Lara was so furious that she threw a temper at Conrad. Are you leaving or not? Conrad glared at Lara. No. Lara sat down directly in an effort to make Conrad stay. Who asked you to be so bitchy? She is a big boss, how dare you talk about her like that? Do you want to ruin your father's business? Be careful, she'll definitely take her revenge on you, Conrad said cruelly. I'm not leaving. Okay, I'll go if you don't. Conrad loosened his grip and walked out after apologizing to Zelda. He didn't want to offend her. If this went on, his father's company would be jeopardized if Zelda had her eyes on him. Lara was dumbfounded. She did not expect Conrad to really leave. The great sense of shame caused Lara to burst into tears. Conrad, you are a good for nothing. Break up, break up. After clearing her head, Lara stood up and also realized that Conrad's words were reasonable. The boss of Modern Restaurant should be wealthy. She must have millions in assets, and Lara's family could not afford to provoke her. What if she spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to find someone to deal with her? After all, she had heard of such news before. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she cried out to Zelda, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure you're looking for hell. Zelda's eyes were as cold as the depths of Antarctica, and they stared deep into Lara's soul. This was a kind of gaze that was full of the power of someone who had survived in the cruel business world, which made Lara cry even harder. I'm sorry, I was a bitch just now. Everything is my fault, please don't come after me. Seeing Zelda's cold expression, Lara came over to plead. Chuck, you are her friend. Can you speak up for me? I know I was wrong, I really am. Chuck wanted nothing to do with this. After all, Zelda was such a powerful boss with both a fearful temper and a limited fuse. Lara was already lucky that Zelda didn't take out her phone to call someone out. Chuck, say something. After all, I am your classmate. Please help me. Lara tugged on Chuck's sleeve. Lara, how can I help you? Chuck shrugged. You're just taking revenge on me. You could just say a word, but you're not. Lara started to make a scene. Chuck had no choice but to ignore her. He had already met Yvette, and his purpose was achieved. He could pay the bill and go back. He said, "Thank you, Director Main. Call me Zelda." Zelda's expression softened. "This is inappropriate, isn't it?" Chuck hurriedly shook his head. She was a boss with status, so it was certainly not appropriate to call her directly. He could only add, "Why don't I call you Sister Zelda?" "That's fine." Zelda smiled. Lara saw it and hurried over. "I'm sorry, Director Main, I'm sorry." Zelda's expression immediately darkened. If she had followed her previous temper, Lara would have already been sent to the hospital. How dare she say this to her? If her father heard this, Lara would be much more miserable. "Chuck, please put in a goo."